Hi, this is Kathy, and we're going to take a quick look at some of the basic principles that apply to type in Illustrator. And the first that we're going to do is look at the difference between point type and area type. So this you may be familiar with from some word processing programs already, but we're just going to look at it very, very quickly here to make sure that you realize the difference. When you take your cursor and click the type tool here, if you simply click and do not drag, as I have just done, you'll see that the words lorem ipsum show up here. And I'm going to change my window to Essentials Classic so that I get the type tools across the top here, so that I can choose a different typeface. Say if I wanted to, let's go to American Typewriter for fun. And then I like that regular font style. I'm going to make this quite a bit bigger, just like you can do in any word processing program. Lorem ipsum, of course, is the nonsense Latin, faux Latin, that typesetters use to fill blocks of type to see how things are going to look. And by default, I think your Illustrator will be set up to give you lorem ipsum. You can turn that off in preferences if it bugs you. Here I'm going to click away. I'm going to click on the type tool again, and I'm going to this time click and drag. I've now got a lot more lorem ipsum, and I've got it in the format that we call area type. So instead of just clicking to enter a place for type to begin to go in with my cursor, I clicked and dragged to create an actual shape. And that shape has been automatically filled with type. And of course, while this is selected, I can type in anything else, my own name, which wouldn't fill this up very well. Let's change the font size on this so that we have some a little bit smaller. Let's make it 24 points. And now if I were to copy this and say I were to paste it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you see that the whole square would fill up with area type. And so that's the basic difference between point type and area type. In point type, you insert your cursor, whoops, there we go, and you start typing. Right? And you can just keep typing. You can correct your errors, of course, just like you would in any word processing program. Of course, you can do that with the area type too. If I were to keep going here with my Shakespeare quote, if I can remember how it goes, I think it droppeth as the gentle dew from heaven, maybe, something like that. And you can see that it's just going to go right on out into the margins until I hit return, just as it would in any word processing program. Okay, so two different ways of entering type. Let's delete all these. I'm putting these in the assignment for Illustrator template just as a reminder that when you actually get to work here, you will be working in your Illustrator template. I'm going to make another shape here, and I'm again going to click on the type tool and simply click on the path of that shape, and you will notice that Illustrator assumes that I want to use that shape to fill with area type, right? Let's do the same thing again here while we've got it selected, of making it much smaller so that we have a chance to, I'm going to copy it, Command C, I'm going to paste a bunch more of it in, paste, 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 and you'll see that when I get to the place where my last paste won't all fit, a tiny little, let's zoom in on this a little better so you can see it a little bigger, a tiny, well, it's still tiny, tiny little red icon has appeared on my shape. This is Illustrator telling me that there is type in its brain which it couldn't fit into this shape here because my last paste was too big for the shape. So it is warning me, if all of those words are really important to you, Kathy, please make the font smaller or make the shape bigger so that the type fits in. Okay, makes sense? And of course, we can make this shape bigger. We can take it with our black selection tool, and we can make it larger and larger and larger, and you'll see that now that little icon has turned from red to white because Illustrator was able to fit in all the type that I had asked it to fit in without having to just remember some without showing it. I hope all that makes sense. Okay, so that's the difference between point type and area type. I'm going to zoom out here again so that we can see the whole file. Let's delete that, and we're now going to look in some point type. Let's make this a little bigger. Let's make lorem ipsum nice and big here. And we're going to show that there are two ways of selecting type in Illustrator. Type is a very, very different object from everything else that you work on with Illustrator. That's why it's got its own heading in the menu here. Type not only is a form which Illustrator can show us with vectors and curves, and we can work with it in all the different ways that you work with any Illustrator path, but it also conveys meaning, right? And so we need to be able to edit it as type in some cases, right? So for example, what if, this really doesn't apply very well, because how do you know if anything's misspelled in lorem ipsum? Let's put my name in here, Kathy Brown. Okay, if I accidentally put two T's in it, we need to be able to go back using the type tool, put a cursor in, and delete one, right? We need to be able to correct our spelling. If I want to change my typeface, I can do that by going back in, and just as in a word processing program, I highlight, select with the type tool, in other words, the words or letters that I want to alter or edit, just like in a word processing program. However, you can also select type with the black selection tool. And when I do that, you'll notice that I get the same kind of handles that I would get if I were selecting a curve or an ellipse or a rectangle that I had drawn with the vector tools, right? So I can stretch it and distort it like this. Let's Command Z that. I can hold my Shift key down and enlarge it however I want. And you'll notice when I do that, that Illustrator makes a calculation on what my new point size is, right? So I've got a very weird point size now, 74.94, because I custom made that myself. I can reflect it, right? So with my black selection tool, I can do any of the transformations that I would normally do with any path that I have selected in Illustrator. And it's important to be aware of how you're selecting your type. So I've shown you two different ways of entering type, and now I want you to think about two different ways of selecting type. One is the editing way, where you simply put a cursor in and you let's see if we can get black extended here. Yeah, and you tell Illustrator what you want to do with those as if you were in a word processing program. The other way is to select it with your black selection tool, and in this method you can do all the transformations on it that you might normally do with any object that you would transform with the black selection tool in Illustrator, including rotations, of course, right? Okay, so two ways to enter type, two ways to select type. The other things that I want to talk to you about are how you might use type as both a line and a shape in the assignment that you're working on. We're going to get into the weeds of typography in our next assignment, but in this assignment it is really important to think about how you might use type as both a line and a shape. So I'm going to delete these, and we are going to look at the Type on a Path tool, right? So Type on a Path is in the stack of type tools that you've got here. If you don't see all these in your stack, make sure that you're in the Essentials Classic window view here. So, and you can go there, of course, either by clicking that little thing or by changing your workspace here. Okay, so I'm going to start off first of all by creating a path. I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm going to create a path here. I'm going to make it sort of a curvaceous path because I'd like it to be a path that might actually, I'm going to hit P to stop the mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to hit no fill. I've got my fill icon in front here. I'm going to just take the fill off that path so that I don't get annoyed by it. Now I'm going to go to the type on a path tool, and I'm going to click right on that path and get my lorem ipsum. I'm still in Skia Black Extended 60 point, of course, and so what I might want to do is go down to a, let's take about, I want to see if I can get my maybe 4 or 5 words on there. So I'm now going to take my type tool, and if I've lost my selection, I can go back in there and get it, but since I've got, let's say, let's do truth and beauty. Whoops, let's spell it right. But see, that's the thing. With the type tool, you get a chance to correct your spelling. Even though I'm typing on a path, I have a chance here to edit this just as I would in any, and I'm going to make it 36 because 36 is a little too big. I'll just type in my own point size 30 because I want to see if I can just about fill up that path I made. There we go. So at about 30 points, I can get Truth and Beauty to take this line here for me at a point size of 30 points. And of course, that's something you can experiment with. You could also make your path bigger, right? If you didn't have room for all of Truth and Beauty. Right now, if I expand it, I'll be expanding the whole thing, but I can also go back in and simply take this anchor point and stretch it out down here and maybe give it a bigger curve. And you see then my line gets bigger, so I might have room to put in something else, rock and roll or whatever you have room for in your 5 words. Okay, so type on a path will give you the chance to really make the eye follow these words along a line of movement, right? You can let that path show if you want to use one of your 5 lines for it, or let's just select away here. You can not let the path show, right? You can not give it a stroke. And in that case, you will simply be using your words as an extra line, right? And words make such an effective line of movement because they draw our eye from left to right or from top to bottom very, very powerfully, okay? So that's a type on a path is going to be a great tool for you to use to make your words create a line for your viewers. Now let's look at making your words create a shape for your viewers if you need another shape. And for this tool, let's see, first we're just going to get a word here. I like truth. Let's type in truth. I'm going to go back to the normal type tool and I'm going to enter some lorem ipsum here, but I'm going to put the caps lock on because this technique works much better with letters that are all the same height, top to bottom. Okay, so I've got my Skia, I've chosen black. I think I'm going to choose, whoops, I got to select this before I can change my type style. I'm just going to say regular black rather than black extended. And now I'm going to ask Illustrator to make that word take a shape. So we're going to go to the ellipse tool here, and we're going to create a shape that we'd like the word to take. And here's the command for this. You, with your black selection tool, must select both the shape and the word. You're going to select them together. I hit Shift Select to get these two things selected together. Alternatively, you could also go like this and draw a selection tool, a marquee around both of them with the black selection tool. But you need them both selected, and then you're going to go Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object. And when you do that, the word truth will jump right into that top object. Now the key here is The ellipse, or whatever your mask is, must be the top object. That language may be reminding you of clipping mask, correct? So say you have a shape that you want this object to take, and I'm going to again take the pen tool, and I'm going to make a slightly more handmade looking shape. And I'm going to again, let's see, take my word, let's do beauty this time. And I'm going to ask it to go into the shape, but this time beauty is the top object, and you can prove that to yourself by looking in the layers window, unpacking the layers in here, and you'll see that beauty is above that little path, that little sort of sarcophagus looking path that I just made, right? So what we're going to have to do is select that path that we want to be the top object, and we're going to go arrange, bring to front, just like we did for clipping mask. Now you can shift select your word, and you can go object, envelope, distort, make with top object, and beauty will be crammed into that funny little shape that I made for it. When people have trouble with object, envelope, distort, when it doesn't work for you, the reason will typically be because you have forgotten to take your mask, the thing you want to use to distort the word, you have forgotten to make it the top object. That is one thing. The other thing that will give you difficulty on this and really, really scramble you up is if your mask is too complex. You can see already I used 5 anchor points to make this mask, and already the U is getting very, very distorted as Illustrator tries to figure out how it's going to work with that 5th anchor point. If you get 11, 15 anchor points in there, you are going to get some very, very wild distortions as you put your words into these top objects. But if you use the simple objects that are available for you here in Illustrator, a rounded rectangle or an ellipse, you're much more likely, symmetrical polygons and so forth, you're much more likely to get a legible distortion. So this will really be fun to play with, I think. I think you can imagine how if you needed another shape in your 5-shape assignment, you could easily get it with one of your words by this method. Okay? Have fun with this, and we will be getting a lot further into type tools in the next lesson.